Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're cutting straight through the noisy headlines to unpack the real ground-level realities of the Cuyahoga County housing market for spring 2026. If you're buying, selling, or just keeping tabs on the real estate landscape, you know exactly how wild the speculation can get. So we're skipping the rumors and diving right into the hard data to see what's actually happening out there.
Let's kick things off with a number that's going to hit both buyers and sellers right in the gut: 10%. I really want you to hold that number in your head because, honestly, it's the driving force behind the whole shebang today. So, what is it? That 10% is the massive year-over-year jump in the median sales price for single-family homes here. A 10% leap in just 12 months? That is not your standard slow and steady appreciation. That's a major spike that completely rewrites the math for anyone trying to get into or out of this market.
All right, Section 1, Rising Home Prices. Let's see exactly where these prices are landing in pure dollars and cents.
Just look at this trajectory for April 2026. The median sales price surged to almost exactly $250,000, $249,975 to be exact. Contrast that with April of last year, which was sitting at around $228,000. That is nearly a $22,000 wealth gain for existing homeowners in a single year. But man, what a steep new hurdle for incoming buyers.
And you know sellers are highly aware of this trend. Median list prices, which are a great leading indicator for market sentiment, have also hit a perfectly round $250,000 baseline. It's almost uncanny, right? Sellers know this market is hot, and they are pricing their properties right at that new $250,000 mark the second the sign goes in the yard.
Moving on to Part 2, Market Speed and Value. Let's see if these high prices are holding up in reality or if they're just wishful thinking.
Because that's the immediate follow-up question on everyone's mind, isn't it? Are buyers actually willing to meet these elevated asking prices? Are we seeing massive negotiations, price drops, and seller concessions happening behind closed doors?
The answer is a resounding yes. Buyers are paying it. On average, homes in April 2026 sold for exactly 100% of their list price. Take a second to process that. 100%. Buyers are not successfully negotiating discounts right now. The list price is essentially the absolute floor.
Plus, it's not just about the money, it's about the speed. Looking at the median days to sell, properties in April literally flew off the shelves in just 19 days. It is genuinely wild how fast that is. It proves that despite those high costs we just talked about, the spring market is moving at lightning speed. If you see a house you like, you've got roughly 2.5 weeks from start to finish to lock that deal down.
Okay, Part 3. Shifts in housing supply. Let's pop the hood and look at the underlying forces driving all this.
Here is where the story starts to get a little twist. Months of inventory, which just measures how long it would take to sell every home currently on the market if 0 new ones were listed, is up to 2.39 months. Now, compared to April of last year, which was only 1.88, that means we actually have a massive 27% supply boost hitting the market right now.
But wait, before anyone goes declaring it a buyer's market, we absolutely need some context. The crucial point here is that even with a massive 27% boost in supply, we are still operating inside an overall inventory shortage. A balanced market, where neither the buyer nor the seller has a distinct advantage, usually sits around 5 to 6 months of inventory. At 2.39 months, sellers still have the upper hand. The leverage hasn't totally flipped, but their grip is definitely loosening a bit.
Section 4, the buyer demand drop. So how exactly is demand reacting to these higher prices and slightly more choices?
Well, there's a fascinating tension building up in Cuyahoga County right now. While rising inventory means more homes are finally becoming available, buyer demand, which we track through pending sales, is actually dipping below last year's levels. So supply is creeping up, but demand is simultaneously pulling back. Drilling down into those pending sales, the raw numbers are super telling. We had 962 pending sales in April 2026. That's a very noticeable 10% drop in buyer activity compared to the 1,062 sales we saw in the exact same month last year. This tells us that buyer fatigue, likely driven by those record-high $250,000 prices we saw earlier, is very, very real. Simply put, fewer people are signing contracts.
Finally, Section 5, the final verdict. Let's synthesize all of this data into what it actually means for Cuyahoga County today.
It's a total paradox perfectly laid out. We're currently in a highly dynamic transitional market. On the surface, it's all hot, record-breaking prices and incredibly fast sales. You list a good house today, it sells quickly for full price. But scratch just a bit underneath that surface, and it's showing undeniable early signs of shifting. Growing inventory is giving buyers more options, and softening demand shows fewer buyers are willing to play the game at these elevated price points.
Given this clear divergence between supply and demand, it leaves us with one vital, overarching question to watch. How long can prices realistically keep climbing if inventory continues to grow while buyer demand predictably shrinks? It is the ultimate standoff between seller expectations and buyer thresholds. You're going to want to watch those inventory numbers closely in the coming months because that is exactly where the future of this market will be decided. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep learning.